My fellow FIers, welcome to the first episode of Retirement Police Most Wanted. This first episode may be a little rough as we start our journey to go on the lam, but please stick with us as we detail our great escape from the golden handcuffs. Thank you and enjoy the episode. My fellow FIers, and if you know what I mean, you'll understand why I'm being so secretive right now. And of course, and you're an FIer, if you're seeking or have already achieved financial independence, feel the need to be secretive about this because I was raised in an era where there were several topics that you really never broached the subject about. Certainly one was politics, the other was religion, and you didn't talk about money. It's actually fairly interesting that I ended up being so attracted to personal finance, given that money or what my parents made or anything like that was not readily discussed. It was a long, long time before I understood any of that. I'm really doing this to hold myself accountable. The plan is to achieve financial independence within the next 100 months. And so there's a 100-month countdown going on. And why 100 months? Because age 59 and a half is typically when people are able to access their pre-tax, tax-deferred retirement savings plans, like a 401k, 403b, thrift savings plan, things like that. I know there are ways that, and clauses and rules in which you can access that money in advance, but generally speaking, the early stage you can access that is age 59 and a half, and that's, your pre or post-tax retirement plans without any savings. By FIRE standards, financial independence, retire early standards, age 59 and a half is not an early retirement, but it's the target that we have set for ourselves. We feel that's realistic for us to hit our FI number. It's interesting how my thinking has evolved, our thinking has evolved on this over the years. When I was younger, I thought if I had $1 million, that meant that I was, rich beyond all measure, that I could live a very material, rich life, lots of material possessions. Quite frankly, that's, what I desired. I would say that that's the American dream. But the underlying American dream is freedom to do whatever you want within, following the rules and norms of our society, what's ethical and moral. And there's a lot that you can do with that freedom within those parameters. I'm not sure these days that $1 million is so rich that you can do anything you want. Certainly there's a lot of people in the financial independence community, and trust me, I understand that most people will never see $1 million, that there's people in the FI community that can retire on less than $1 million. I would say that our annual expenses are much higher than $40,000 annually, but we're still trying to dial in exactly what our FI number is. Sort of have a range, have a two-part strategy. We'll get into that a little bit more in the future, but these days, I'm not really looking to acquire all of the material possessions that I think one would normally think about. I also raised in a family where it was a time where basically you could and did only have one parent work, which was my father. My mother certainly did work at periods over the years, but that wasn't a driver for her, and we can certainly go into that further. But retirement was not something that I don't even think my father ever really planned for it. and by that I don't mean that he didn't plan financially for it, was not really someone who cared a lot about money, in fact, and this certainly violates the retirement police. And for those of you who are not aware of the retirement police, this is actually something that I find rather humorous. You'll hear me talk about, you'll visually see acknowledgments of the retirement police. And I know I'm talking rather seriously right now, but you'll find that these conversations and what happens in terms of these podcasts or videos, I mean, sometimes they're going to be right off the wall. I just have to state that up front because that's part of my personality, I would say, and you're gonna see that come through in kind of crazy zany ways. But my point here is that the more recent cult-like leader of the financial independence movement, a gentleman by the name of Mr. Money Mustache, and in this case it's almost reverse, aka Pete Adney. He, I think, is best known for a lot of things, but so he coined this term, Internet Retirement Police, and I really prefer to shorten that to just Retirement Police. Another gentleman in the financial independence community, Mr. 1500, or Carl Jensen, and Mrs. 1500, Mindy Jensen, both who have their own projects and shows related to financial independence. They also, talk about the Internet Retirement Police. So just want to give some acknowledgments there, but certainly hear me talk about that. But I guess getting back to my father, he was somebody who, even when he wasn't at work, he was definitely a workaholic. I would say that I have those tendencies, but he was really somebody that was young at heart, and he officially retired pretty late in life, far later than your typical age 65. My father enjoyed his work so much that, dare I say it, he worked for free, and paid work was optional because he had more than enough money. He was not going to spend it all. He loved working with people younger than him, really giving advice, being a mentor to them in terms of how you went about working in the field that he worked in, and essentially trying to pay it forward. Over the years, I've actually heard from his colleague, just went out of his way maybe to make sure that he bought somebody lunch, or just, would do little things at critical times for people that just had a good feel for when people needed some guidance, or he had his own self-motivation, and it's amazing. He wound up with, as well as he did financially, number one, because of his overall salary, also because he just put very little stock into money. That being said, he did all of the things that he needed to do, but he was not obsessed financially. My mother had been somebody who needed care, and he really believed that she had sacrificed for him to allow him to, over his lifetime, pursue his career, and what a pleasure that it was, a passion for him. Going to work was like going to play most days, which is really a gift. It's not work if you can. So certainly one of the things that you'll hear me talk probably a lot about is real reverence for my mother and my father. Their incredible work ethic, self-sacrifice, their self-discipline, just worked really hard. Again, when my father made that decision to retire to take care of my mother full-time, he had an offer within a week to come back, and he thought about it really long and hard because they did need him to take on a role that he was really good at in a part-time capacity. But he thought about it for about a week and ultimately decided he did need to just completely step away and officially retire. For him, he was such a part of the community, his work community. It was so much of his identity. He occasionally caught up with his work family, but it really was not the same. And I struggle with, is it better to work really hard to retire early or to pace myself, pace ourselves, and work basically your entire lifetime to maintain a purpose in your life? And I believe that I too have those very similar workaholic tendencies. I know that at some point I need to turn it off because, quite frankly, one of my life's failures is not being able to turn off work mode. I know I could retire a lot earlier than my father did. Father, in fact, didn't retire until the age of 71 for paid employment. Think about the typical retirement age that we think of right now as being 65. That's going to go up to 67. It seems like a long time to work. Working till 71, really for paid employment for my father. I don't think it was really about the money. I just think he really, really liked his time at the office. I have heard from people, there's the joke, people get to their deathbed and then they have a regret and they say, I worked too much. For my father, that was not a life regret. It definitely didn't make the list of regrets. Canceling more time at the office was not on his list. I'm not saying it was healthy, but he felt he kept a youthfulness about him. I will acknowledge, though, that there may not be a financial reason for work, but health benefits is really, really something that is enticing reason to continue working after we need the cash per se. I know there are healthcare exchange. We'll see how healthcare evolves and changes in terms of coverage and government benefits over the next 100 months. We are at this point of this 100-month countdown, and I know that while I love my work, there may be a point where I will be one of those people that will say, I should have turned off the paid employment much sooner. There's other things that I could do. And I know there's not going to be a lot of people from work that I am going to end up staying in contact with, even though it's so much of my identity. I will suffer from 1 more year syndrome. And if you don't know what 1 year syndrome is, people basically work 1 more year than they need to because they just want to be sure that there's going to be enough money to retire. Don't get screwed up. Logically, I think that may be influenced by how the market's doing. Being in the accumulation stage is where my head's at. The decumulation stage, as I've heard from other people and as I've listened to others talk about, is the harder trick and the harder switch. Again, we have focused over the years about putting money away in 401ks, 403bs, IRAs, things. There is a tax bill expected to, the federal government looks to change in 2025. There is the expiration of the 2017 Tax Cut and Jobs Act, and there's a number of provisions in there that expire. There's changes that they may make, and so there's only so much certainty that for so long that Congress will provide, but it will be interesting to see what provisions the government looks to extend or grandfather in here moving forward. Now, while I've talked about our focus on the accumulation stage and really accessing all those accounts, we've been hitting that hard, maxing things out we've been blessed to do that for multiple years. But in these next 100 months, we really are trying to take a little bit of a different approach. We're more cognizant of the fact that we are at an age when things happen. We want to make sure that we have time to maximize our experiences. This is definitely part of a shift in our money psychology or money approach. Travel and experiences have always been something that has been an emphasis for us. It's probably surprising that we're not saving every dime that we possibly can these next 100 months before we walk away from our quote-unquote paid employment. We are still continuing to max out our pre-retirement accounts, but we have dialed it back. As of late, we have not been trying to max out our post-retirement savings. We're really focusing our after-tax discretionary funds, spending money on ourselves, which is, again, it's not our mode. Also doing extra things for our kids. Our kids are pretty frugal. They tend to be very money conscientious. Certainly they've lived very well. I don't want to give you an impression otherwise. Been well taken care of. Millionaire Next Door. It's a book that I'll probably talk about a lot more, but Thomas Stanley and William Denko, they refer to it as economic outpatient support for your children. We're highly critical of that. I do want our kids to take care of the things that they need to take care of. And by that, I mean making sure that they are participating in their own ability to save for their retirement and to be very cognizant of that and to put away money. And I guess the term that I would use is if they were operating like FI idiots, just blowing money on things that I really thought stupid. And again, I make daily, if not weekly, stupid decisions, even though I can be very frugal. But I think as long as I personally see or we see them really making progress and taking care of that, I don't mind doing some nice extra things for them. They're not making decisions and then saying, oh, but I know mom and dad are going to, and really they don't expect it. Give me X amount of money or pay for this or whatnot. They don't have an expectation that way. And I think if they did have an expectation that way, I would be ironically much less inclined to help if I knew I was being taken for granted. But it's really more that we want to help out where we can while we still have sort of the extra income to do so. And I also want to support, and I don't, no pun intended there, I want to support their robust financial independence behavior, participation in Roth accounts. Want to make sure that they are developing those good financial habits or trying to talk to them about doing things of that nature, passing down, as people would say, second generation FI. Although in terms of my family, I can say FI has been passed down for multiple generations, even if it wasn't sort of intentional. It really was, by example. One of the things that we have done, making sure that our kids come out of college debt-free. That is, there's multiple perspectives. I personally was able to come out of college debt-free. I think it really set me up for a better financial starting line than many others. That was not without work. On my part, it was certainly with the benefit of my parents. It's something that I really want to pass on because not everybody either has that opportunity or not everybody either possibility or philosophical belief. Some people really do want their kids to have skin in the game. That being said, it's not like our kids, they've worked during college in ways that they have had skin in the game, working typically like 20 hours a week at a minimum while maintaining full class loads, and then summers obviously busier. I think there's benefit. I've also shown a lot of financial restraint with our kids, especially when they were growing up. I am very much known to have used the phrase, we can't afford that, we're doing this thing instead of that things. I have later learned, and we can all laugh about it now, but one of the unfortunate things about some of that language is that our kids, at times, they really thought we were poor. And they definitely had a lot of friends that lived larger than we did. I suspect friends of theirs, families, actually had more money. In some cases, I'm sure we had more money, but the way that their lifestyle was, they had all of the appearances of doing much better. And it didn't bother me because we live a very, very comfortable with that amazing material life. I don't need more. I think my fellow FIers, many of you feel the same way. It was more important to us to make sure that we had things that we wanted later in life, or there were going to be opportunities that we spent on later in life that for our kids that they were going to appreciate more than they appreciated that toy. So we are 100 months out. I definitely feel like I'm in my prime for my work. I still have that drive to work. There's still certain things that I want to accomplish. And as a side benefit, I really like seeing our retirement funds generally up way, way better than we saw in the Great Recession of 2008, 2009, even during COVID when things went sideways for a while. So we have targets we want to hit in these next 100 months. We kind of look at that a little different, again, in two parts, and I'll get into that in the future. We certainly want to meet or exceed our financial figures and calculations. I know people don't necessarily like calling it the 4% rule, 4% guidance. Bill Bengen, who coined that term, I understand he has a new book out. He's talking about more like withdrawing 5%. Again, I am not a financial expert. This is intended in any way to be financial advice. This is just really following along with us for these next 100 months to see how things go as we get closer to age 59 and a half, to, again, hold us accountable. Either you can learn from our journey, maybe it's just purely entertainment for you. Again, I want to hold myself accountable. People can sort of see in real time where we're going with this. I want to vacation more. I want to do more trips, at least what I consider one major trip a year, and that is like going to Europe, or often appreciate the United States more after I go out of the country, because I think it's informative to see how other people live, how their governments interact, like these multi-party systems. Not every place has a democracy. It's, to me, that's a fascinating aspect of things. And then 4 to 5 minor trips per year, likely based around long weekends. It definitely could be longer. Typically, these would be U.S. based. Last couple months here, renewed our U.S. passports. We got a 10-year time frame here for international travel. I want to do that while I'm still in shape to go do that. Not that I won't be in shape after 10 years, but I really want to feel like I can hit that hard. Make sure our kids graduate from college debt-free, and investing in ourselves, going to things like local. We really like to hang out at coffee shops, or go to certain restaurants, and then also definitely to practice financial independence and being generous with our family and friends. So that about covers it, what we're looking to do these next 100 months.